Hello and welcome to Reviews on the Couch, where we discuss movies, how they made us feel, and lessons we can pick from them. My name is Elsie Godwin. If this is your first time or visiting this YouTube channel, kindly subscribe by clicking the red button and also hit the bell button so you get notified each time there's a new content. Thank you. On this episode of Reviews on the Couch, we'll be reviewing and discussing a 2020 Nigerian movie titled Voiceless. I'm excited about discussing this movie because the story depicts the current nightmare of many in the northern part of Nigeria. In the movie, a girl crosses paths with her soulmate while being held captive at a terrorist camp. Joining me on this episode of Reviews on the Couch is an award-winning reporter and journalist, Amaka Okoye. She's currently with Arise News and have been recommended and commended for her work and bravery in covering the kidnap cases in the northern part of Nigeria and shining light on the true situation of some of the IDP camps in Nigeria. She'll be joining us right after this break. Thank you so much for being my guest, Amaka. It was important for me to have you because of the movie we're talking about. I couldn't think of any other person that I would say I know that they have been in the middle of this reportage when it comes to the issues in the north, right? So thank you very much. You've seen the movie Voiceless. When you saw it or after seeing it, what were your initial thoughts about it?
I think it's an incredible story to begin with. The producer, I believe he's Peter Roberts or Robert Peters, and of course, the director, that's Peter Roberts, and the producer is Ofime, I think, Rogers, and the amazing characters. I think they did an incredible job in terms of telling that story. When I watched Voiceless, as you did mention, like someone who has covered all of the abductions that that's have happened from December of last year up until now, having gone to Chibok myself, slept in Chibok, interviewed parents who are still waiting for their children, and spoken to some of the escaped girls. I literally just saw all of those people that I spoke to, I saw their story and their reality mirrored in that film. And so I want to say that the originality of that film is top notch. The story needed to be told. My first reaction after watching it is, um, unfortunately, our country breaks you in different many ways. That's one. The second thing is, Voiceless is not a movie you want to watch for entertainment. It's not going to entertain you, but it's a movie that will tell you the story and the reality of those who have been kidnapped, those who have stayed in terrorist den, if you like, their pain, their anguish, the stigma, the fear, the unacceptance of society, and the difficulty to be able to, be reintegrated to society again. And unfortunately, when we talk about those who, have been in captivity in terms of Boko Haram or bandit attack, whatever you want to call the criminal elements of, unfortunately, that is now growing in our country, we kind of neglect this part, these people who remain voiceless. And that's why I must say that it's an important story that was told. They don't need to be voiceless again. Interestingly, I'm currently working on an article of, someone who was in captivity and, married one of these people would say are terrorists, and then came out, of course, with a child. And up until today, this man is faceless. That's because society would not accept him. He can't go back to the terrorist group. They've disowned him as a terrorist. He cannot be in his wife's village because his wife's people have also disowned him. They don't want even to have anything to do with the child. And so I could see in that in Voiceless the story of all of these people literally mirrored out. And that's a part of um, those in the story that we've always neglected. We've never talked about those people who eventually returned after being in, of course, captivity with Boko Haram, who have returned, how is society treating them? How is there a level of acceptance? So, so I don't know whether I would say it's a coincidence, but it's interesting that I'm working on this article and then watching Voiceless kind of affirmed the fact that yes, there is a segment of people who will never talk about, and they
Yeah.
shouldn't remain voiceless. So I think it's an incredible job that Rogers and team they've done. It's a good story. There are a lot of, I must say, there are a lot of Guanese who are out there and never find a voice. And Elsie, unfortunately, may not find that voice. They have remained voiceless and faceless up until now. And that's why I think that's a very powerful story. There were
It
so many
is.
times
It is.
I cried watching it. So yeah.
Yes, it is. I actually cried at some point watching it, and like you said, it will help you understand if all the while we've been having this conversation about the insurgency and what Boko Haram is doing, and you think you don't get it, watching that movie will make you understand a bit. I don't even think it's everything, but at least a bit of it will be understood. And I like that you're working on an article that has to do with somebody that the story is relatable in the movie, and I can't wait to see it. But looking at how the society is not very welcoming for repentant bandits or Boko Haram members or terrorists, however I want to call them. Would you say that you now understand where the government is coming from when they decide to put amnesty on the table? Does it make sense to you from that angle?
All right, Elsie, I must say there are two different things at play here. When we talk about the issues of banditry in Nigeria, and again, having covered all of this for over 7 months now, if you like, they are clearly not the same. The bandits are not the same as Boko Haram. Boko Haram members, we knew from day one what their agitations are. They are totally opposed to Western education. That's what the agitations are. The bandits say they are people that have been neglected over time. And
Hmm.
so they feel it's now time for them to take over all that has been denied of them. Right. However, we cannot use that as a justification for the level of killings that we've seen, the mass abduction of students, boys and girls from different places. I mean, name it, from Kankara in Katsina State, the president's hometown, to Kagara in Niger State, and then to, Jengebe in Zamfara. And then there is Kaduna, of course. There is the one that happened in Sokoto that, we don't hear so much of. And then there is Mina, that there is United States that happened. Again, there is Kirby that's happened. Where else in the north, really, can you say we've not had all of this? So my point is, when government talks about, blanket amnesty for these people, we must be clear so that we don't mix things up. There are people like the story portrayed in Voiceless who essentially were not, terrorists. They were conscripted, for lack of a better word, like even the girls. So they go into the villages, for instance, and then they, carry everybody. These people from day one are not terrorists. Let's understand that. However, over time, as soon as they get into the camp, they are forced to begin to live that sort of life. They are given weapons, they are trained to kill, they are trained to go to the villages and raid people. From the beginning, they were not terrorists. But over time, because they've been exposed, to this lifestyle, you could say yes, by association, they become that. And some of them never get to change. The point I'm trying to make is the fact that there are those people who are originally are terrorists. That's who they are. There are those people who originally are bandits. That's who they are. We have herdsmen in Nigeria who are not necessarily bandits. So we must be clear when the government is talking about blanket amnesty, which is what, every time we raise that conversation, that's the question we're asking. Who are you granting this amnesty to? there is a whole question around who do you say are the repentant, bandits or repentant Boko Haram members? How do you know those who are truly repentant? It's a whole lot, conversation, and it's a whole lot in the mix that we need to really be careful about, especially here in Nigeria, when we want to kind of separate these issues. If the government is talking about amnesty for bandits, it's not talking of amnesty for repentant Boko Haram members. We must be clear about that. But how do you determine who is a repentant bandit? How do you determine who is, a repentant Boko Haram member? So there's that difficulty. Unless we're able to separate these things, it will remain so ambiguous. And again, that's where you hear the conversation of when people say you cannot begin to compare the bandits with, the Niger Delta militants, for instance. You cannot compare Boko Haram, members with those people. Their agitations are clearly different. We are not supporting any of this, but it's important that we know for sure what each group stands for and what the agitations are, Elsie.
Thank you very much for that clarification. We definitely need to understand what we are doing and be clear on our strategies. But moving away from that, I mean, you've been on the field, you're with a media organization, you also work with other international media organizations. How would you rate our reportage in covering what is on ground? Of course, considering the constraints we have with NBC, freedom of speech, the government, how would you rate what we are doing? Are we doing enough, or can we do much more better?
I like to say, and I say this with a lot of responsibility, Elsie, because I do know that my organization do everything humanly possible in terms of our protection and in terms of getting us to go to these places. Having said that, going into these areas, it's not a piece of cake. We've come close to death so many times. I mean, it's not something we say out there. But the point I'm trying to make is that these areas are very, very volatile. I mean, how many media houses in Nigeria would give you life insurance? You know what I mean? Would say, okay, we're giving you a truckload of security personnel for you to be able to go into that places. The truth of the matter is that they are volatile areas. The truth of the matter is that they are even difficult areas to cover. I was in Chibok, for instance. I spent a night in Chibok. That night in Chibok was the most horrific and terrifying experience of my life. Because it got to some points where we didn't have internet access, we couldn't communicate to the office. The office was desperate to, hear from us and to be able to track us. They couldn't track us. I couldn't reach the office. These are the kind of places we're talking about. So in terms of reportage, we would expect that, yes, such stories will be told. But the truth of the matter is, unfortunately, the accessibility is also not there. Yes, you could say that, well, CNN has always gone into Chibok. Yeah, but you can't compare CNN to the media houses in Nigeria without offense. I mean, um, I work for a media house in Nigeria as well. So the point is, we could do better. That's one. Another very crucial aspect is understanding the subject matter. So many times when I speak to, when we have this conversation around banditry, terrorism, and all of these criminal elements, unfortunately, not all of us journalists understand the subject matter. Now, when you do not understand the subject matter, chances are that you muddle up everything. I mean, every time, and that's why I think it's a privilege to be able to be on ground, talking about going to, when Kagara happened, I was in Kagara. When Kankara happened, I was in Kankara. When Jengebe happened, I was in Jengebe. Almost all of this, when Afaka in Kaduna happened, I was there. But what that gave to me is the fact that I'm able to speak, firsthand. You speak to the people. I'm seeing the people. I'm literally talking to the people. But every time I come on air, half the time I'm trying to correct, the misinformation that is out there, from the media as well. So we need to understand the subject matter, and we need to understand, when you have the benefit of history, residual knowledge is also very important. If you look at the issues of Boko Haram and banditry, it didn't start today. There's a history to it. So these are the things that we need to understand, both as media practitioners, as journalists, as analysts, as legal practitioners, whoever you are interested in this subject matter, to be able to represent the story as it is. So to answer your story, Elsie, we could do better. We doing what we can. Um, but we could better our best, for lack of a better word. So much more needs to be done, more training needs to be done, more resources need to be put in. I don't know how many media houses in Nigeria would want to do that, but most definitely we need resources, we need personnel, we need capacity to be able to handle, even in telling the stories of, this sort of banditry, terrorism, and the things that we've been seeing happening in Nigeria lately, Elsie.
Again, I have to really say well done on all you do. Like I see them, I mean, we see them from afar, and I just say well done, and I keep praying for safety. I mean, when you are not sure of the safety, all you can do is really pray. Yeah? So well done
Yeah,
on all you do and all you do to ensure that we
thank you.
see what is on ground. Talking about the impact of this insurgency in the north, right? We know that education there has always been a big deal. Even without the criminal activities, they've been behind. And now the situation is there. And last week, if I'm not mistaken, El Rufai halted the resumption of schools indefinitely because he's saying he's more interested in the safety of these children than anything else. So, how would you rate the impact of this situation on education in the northern part of Nigeria at the moment?
I mean, it's most unfortunate because, as you do know, data don't lie. We know that the North has the highest number of out of school children. We have the 10 points something million. We have also the 16 points, thereabouts million. That's when you put together both the secondary school and the primary school, all of them out of school. That's the number that we're talking about who are out of school, essentially will not have education. That's what we're talking about. Now, apart from that, we have the insurgency, we have the bandits, these attacks that have been mostly on schools. And for every one of these places that I've gone to, the schools that that have been attacked, both mixed school and girls' school, the best thing that I've ever seen, I mean, that can happen is that the schools, have to be shut down because what you must understand, Elsie, is that even the bandits know the strategy. Do you
Hmm.
know why Chibok was a global, it commanded global attention? It's because it was a school, right? Before Chibok, there's been several kidnaps, terrorists will go into villages, raid villages, burn villages, send out villagers, and not so much of it is said in the news, isn't it? Sometimes we hear it in the news, but not it didn't generate such attention as did Chibok girls. Now here's the strategy. Terrorists and bandits, I mean, from the interaction of those who've gone into captivity and come out, who've spoken to me and spoken to media, understand that when you touch a school, the world will react, right? Nigeria will react. The international community would react. I mean, when Chibok happened, everybody was talking about it. Michelle Obama was talking about it. Everybody was bring back our girls. It commanded global attention. It's because it's a school. So these people understand that when we talk to school, I mean, there's going to be a lot of attention. Now, let me put it in context. When Niger happened, the school in Niger happened. Just before the school happened, a week before then, there was a kidnap, the kidnap of the people who were in the Niger State Transport, I believe, authority bus. But, that didn't generate a lot of attention. But when it was school, everybody was talking about it. So is Kaduna. Kaduna was a school, everybody was talking about it. Jengebe was a school, everybody was talking about it. So most definitely these people understand the strategy that if we touch a school, there's going to be a reaction from people, which is why schools have become soft targets. Unfortunately, Elsie, for all of the schools that have been attacked, they've all been shut down. What that means is that these girls, these boys cannot get access to education. If you say do not close down the schools, you risk being attacked. So the most recent one was Kebbi State. Recall that the school got the information that, look, oh, we're going to attack. And then it was 2 weeks to writing their final exams. And the school consulted, because this is a federal government school, not a state school. The school consulted with the federal minister of health, who is responsible for that school. They, look, what are we going to do? Students have 2 weeks to write in their final exam. Should we close the school? And the school said no. They said, well, we're going to give you everything you need in terms of security personnel. I was in that school, Elsie. Most of the schools that have been attacked, I can tell you for a fact, it's either because their fences are not, I mean, the school is totally in deplorable condition, so anybody can penetrate, whether you're armed or not armed. But this particular school has got high fences, no place is broken, it's got armed security personnel. But again, they were overpowered. You see, so it's a dilemma. Should you keep the student in school and risk them becoming prey to bandits, or do you close down the school for their safety and deprive them of education? It's a terrible situation to be in.
Man, it's scary just hearing it. It's really scary. But what more would you like to see happen? Like, what would you expect to happen going forward?
I mean, I would like to see beyond the rhetorics, beyond the media appearances of leadership in Nigeria, to see action. Without holding brief for the governor of Kebbi State, as far as I am concerned, that was one single governor that expressed rage, when the kidnap happened in his state. And that was the only reason why we didn't hear anything about ransom. Because as soon as this happened, he mobilized the local hunters, vigilantes, security personnel, and straight up, they attacked these people, you know. And even the bandits did not have that leverage of beginning to call for ransom because they were surrounded. Even the bandits needed to stay alive. So if every state governor, whether you're in the north or you're in the south, wherever you are in Nigeria, so long as your state is prone, if we would demonstrate that level of rage, and put words into action, and when you say, I'm going to see an end to this, that is translated into action. Action means you have security personnel, you have vigilantes, you have whoever you're working with the state security police, or you're working with federal government, and we literally see these people marching into those directions. Because Elsie, as you do know, we're not talking about bandits that are faceless. No, we're not talking about people who we don't know where they are. No, we know, I mean, they certainly know where these people are. I mean, when I was in Chibok, the people will literally say to you, this side is where the terrorists are. This side is our own area. This market is, the markets where the terrorists come to. So they know these things. So why do we not just go straight on and attack those places? But when you say that again, our leadership will say, well, we don't want, collateral damage. And so that's why we are trying, to avoid collateral damage. I want to see beyond rhetorics, to see action. I want to see every state governor who says, I'm going to see an end to this, to translate that to action. I want to see our president taking charge and literally say, this must end. There must be a strong communication, to even these bandits, whoever they are, to know that this sort of behavior is unacceptable. And when you say it is unacceptable, you act it out. The people, these criminal elements, they understand that. But over time, what we're seeing is press releases. I totally condemn this. I totally sympathize with,
I'm in
and
shock.
dozens and dozens and dozens of Nigerians are dying by the minute. And
And
we
and
cannot
those
tell all of
numbers that
them.
are
We
dying, are
cannot.
they not more than the collateral damage that you're trying to avoid? I don't know.
I
I
mean,
don't know. It's left for them to respond. But I
it
don't
is.
think it would be it. I don't think we would do justice to this conversation, being all professional and talking about the issue and not being a bit personal. I mean, for you,
It is
you go
difficult.
into these places and you're doing these jobs. What motivates you? What is that point where you get to and you know you're scared, but you have to keep going? Just in a minute, just let us get into your mind when you're going for this assignment and when you're coming back. Just let us in.
because the life of every person matters, because the story of everybody needs to be told, because it's a human being, because over time we have forgotten that these figures are human beings. And because I want these figures to be given the face of every human being, when we say 40 women and children are killed, that it makes sense to us that we're talking about another human being in 40 places killed, and then we take action. There are times that I've been totally scared. I mean, going into Chibok, I've been told, oh, we've fighted the terrorists, you can't go, and having to hide in another village for 2 hours. It was the scariest moment of my life. But I knew that this people's story needed to be told. And many times I go and I speak to mothers, I speak to family members, and they say to me, oh, Jonas, do you know when my children will be back? Do you know if they're going to release my children? It's a tough one to deal with, but somebody needs to tell that story. And basically, that's why I tell these stories.
Thank you so much, Amaka. Thank you so much. If you're going to rate Voiceless on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you say?
I am almost going to say 10 over 10 because they killed it. Absolutely. It's a
Yeah,
story, it's so
it's an
powerful
important
and it's
story.
so well represented. So I must say to Peter Rogers and Peter Roberts, apologies, and Rogers Ofime and all the amazing people there, they did a great job. It's a great story they told. Very, very incredible.
Thank you. Thank you for watching. My name is Elsie Godwin. If there is any movie you think we should talk about or expand on the lessons it aims to portray, then please send me a DM on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, anywhere you find Elsie Godwin and Elsieisy. That's ELSIEISY. Also, please do not forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Click the red button below and also hit the bell button so you get notified each time there is a new content. Till another upload on this channel. Thank you for watching again and take care of yourself.